Hello everybody and welcome back to Odin's movie blog. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well today. Oh boy, we got a lot to talk about, but first, once again, thank you all so much for the very kind words as I have been dealing with illness. I'm about 70% back. I'm still dealing with some digestion issues, but so far today hasn't been as bad as it was yesterday, so things are on the up and up. Still planning to do my live stream tonight on the Odin's movie blog channel, where we will be watching the movie Master and Commander: The Far Side of the World in celebration of Tina, the Valkyrie's birthday, which is going to be happening this week. So shout out to Tina, the Valkyrie, and of course Steph as well, who's also amazing. But it is indeed Tina's birthday weekend, and therefore we are going to be celebrating it here on this channel, so please join us for that. But before we get into the Captain Marvel news, because gosh, Captain Marvel just can't stay out of the news cycle for some reason, and we'll get into all of the news covering that, I did want to touch upon this a little bit. So I did cover this on my Twitter page, so if you have not followed me on Twitter, go to the links in the description below and follow me on Twitter, where I will talk about random things that happen throughout the day, breaking news stories, box office numbers, things of that sort. If you like that kind of stuff, boom, follow me on Twitter. But anyway, as you see up here, Alita maybe have stumbled in America, but it is soaring in China, at least according to our boy, Scotty Boy Mendelsohn. It's always great. It's always great to see the media shills just come out of the woodwork saying, it was going to fail, but oh, wait a minute, no longer, no, never mind. It's just so fascinating that before big numbers, before China comes out, when a movie based on a manga, when a movie that is going to be made for and do well in a country like China, like Japan, like many other countries around the world, that they just decide to write off a film before they've even gotten a full release. So as you can see, it is doing very, very well in China. And as it says there, an overperformance for How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World. An overperformance? I mean, seriously, who thought that How to Train Your Dragon was not going to do well? It is the third film in a trilogy. Every single film has been received well, and every single film has been good up to this point. Kind of was, pretty much going to be a guarantee to be the first real good box office movie, at least domestically, and that is not a real big surprise. However, apparently people like Scotty Boy Mendelsohn, it was a huge surprise. And so therefore what we see is that it is indeed maybe not doing that well here because of that release, but in China, it's a very, very different story. So as it says there, it earned $3.14 million on its second Friday in North America, giving it a 51.8. That's a lot of dollar signs you got there, bud. For the 8-day total, that positions the Rosa Salazar actioner for $11.3 million second weekend, which is a drop of 60%, which would be a $60 million 11-day cumulative, which once again, we did not think that this film was going to do that well in the United States. However, he does make the point later on in the article that next weekend, seeing that there is no major release coming out next weekend, that it very well could see a second running. I think that this movie is performing during the week. I've had so many people say, I'm going to see it today, I'm going to see it tomorrow, I'm going to see it 5 days this week. So I know people in North America are going out to see it, but I also know that a lot of people are going off to see it in China, in other parts of the world as well. But here is where the really cool thing is going on here within the China numbers. If I can even find it here, because Scotty Boy Mendelsohn is just making it so difficult just to find. So it's talking about all the other movies that have not done well. There it is. The good news. The good news is that it's still kicking butt in China with a $24.8 million Saturday, which is a 25.5% increase from its opening day, which should equal around a $63.5 million opening weekend. That means that this film is likely on pace to make at least $150 million, if not much, much more. Some speculate it could be as much as $200 million plus just from China alone. Now, some people will say, it only gets 25% of the China box office. That might be true, but it also gets more box office from the United States and also a mixed bag as far as other countries are concerned, which is why the rule of thumb is by the end of its run, you take 60% of whatever total you have, and that is going to equal how much the studio actually made. Is it perfect? Is it exactly 60%? Probably not. However, most industry insiders tend to use that percentage, and so that's exactly what I'm going to do in the process as well. Even Scotty Boy Mendelsohn says that this film, very likely, if it does well in China and does as well as it can in the United States, getting $85 to $100 million, you're looking at a overall cumulative of over $450 million if it does well, which again, it seems all indications seem that China is really liking it, and if that is the case, it will break even. Maybe not make that big of a profit. I think that it will actually make a few $1,000,000 if it makes 450, because as I said constantly before, 430 is that break even number. However, it is still great nonetheless to see this movie doing well. What is also great is to see how people can't seem to understand how when people are going to be, and there's going to be some people in the comments saying, why are you comparing Alita to Captain Marvel? Because on the one hand, you have a strong character who happens to be female, but a strong character, and on the other, you have a character that's being shoved down every person's throat, including the comic book community, that is not one of this character since 2012, even beforehand, and yet they keep on rebooting her because they want to keep her relevant, and they want to act like she is important, that people do want to see her, even though her character has been rebooted like 4, 5, 6, 8 times, upwards of 8 times I've been hearing. But the good news about this film is indeed the fact that Captain Marvel's directors have explained why Goose's name is different than in the comics. That is right, the news that everyone cares about, the news that everyone wants to hear about is more about Goose. So much so that on the Marvel YouTube channel, they had almost an hour's worth of a live stream just of Goose the cat. No lie. That is how they're marketing this film now. They know that they cannot rely on Brie Larson. They know that she cannot sell this movie, and so now what are they doing? They're focusing on the freaking cat. Yes, the thing that everyone's talking about coming out of the screening, that is what they are focusing on. So much so that now they are talking about it even more so, and now Screen Rant is writing an article about it. And to me, the reason why they change it to me is hilarious. And so what it says here, it wasn't a big thing, talking about the name change. It just felt like Star Wars, because if you don't know at this point, the original comic book character, the original comic book cat's name was Chewie. And so it just felt like Star Wars was so part of the culture that it just felt like we wanted to remove it a little bit. So a part of the culture that we wanted to remove. Why would you want to remove Star Wars from the culture? They're talking about right now, by the way. So why do you think you would want to remove it from the culture? Could it possibly be because Star Wars is not in a very good state right now? That's a good call. Interesting that it's all under the Disney umbrella that all this is happening. Star Wars felt like it was something from the 70s and 80s, and I think that was the spirit of Chewie from the comics. We felt like we wanted to sort of just slide away from that slightly. So notice that they're not trying to say this is a 90s movie and so we wanted a 90s reference. No. They said that they felt that Star Wars was so much a part of the culture that they didn't want to have any connection to it. That is the before The Last Jedi, that is the dumbest thing that you could ever say, because Star Wars is one of the biggest, or at least was, one of the biggest IPs that have ever existed. So if even Captain Marvel, if even Captain Mabel, if even Brie Larson's movie is going to separate itself from Disney Star Wars, and if that's not supposed to be a sign that things aren't going well, I don't really know what else can be. If they're going to change the name of the character because they don't want it to be connected to Star Wars, I mean, that doesn't look good. Doesn't look good. We'll bring up Star Wars a little bit later, but I just thought that was hilarious that they changed it to Goose from Top Gun because they wanted to get away from Star Wars, because that's what you do. Instead of going with the bigger IP, you go with Top Gun, which again, I love Top Gun. I think Top Gun's a great movie. However, Star Wars used to be one of the biggest IPs of all time, and then of course Disney has just systematically driven it into the ground. You also have a lot of other things going on. For example, Captain Marvel. Kevin Feige reveals if Kamala Khan will appear. And I only bring up this article because this just, again, it's not even just Kevin Feige, it's not just Brie Larson. Obviously, these are major players, Brie Larson I think being the biggest one, but the media have played such a major role in this as well, by the very fact that they are pontificating in every single article that they're supposed to writing. Like, seriously, they're supposed to be objective news persons. I've never said that I am a completely objective person. I mean, by obvious, I have opinions, I have thoughts, and I'm going to share those thoughts with you. But these people are pretending to be of the objective news caliber, and yet this is what you hear. Ever since Marvel Studios announced it was bringing Carol Danvers to the big screen with Captain Marvel, fans have been speculating about the potential inclusion of fan favorite Kamala Khan, aka Miss Marvel. Which fans are you talking about? Are you talking about the fans that have not supported this comic since 2012 to the point where they've had to reboot it constantly? Those fans? So you're talking essentially about almost nobody? The nobody who actually supports this thing? That just doesn't make any sense to me. And apparently Kevin Feige says, you know, if Comic-Con was hidden in the film somewhere, he says no. I think she's a contemporary story. I don't think she was a little kid in 1990. I'm not sure she was born in 1995, which tells us that they are probably thinking about it down the pipe, seeing that this is set in the 90s and that this is eventually going to be put into the modern day era just because of the nature that Captain Marvel is brought into the Endgame story. However, what that means is very likely we will. And also Brie Larson herself says, oh, I would love to have Kamala Khan. That's the plan. That's my idea. Okay, sure. Good luck with that. Because again, oh, Lord. But yeah, all the fans want it. All the fans want this. Captain Marvel, Brie Larson soars on wires in behind-the-scenes photo. Here's another thing. Have you ever seen so many articles? Have you ever seen so many set photos, video clips, trailers? I've seen probably 1,000 different trailers for this movie. And it's amazing to me, even to the point where I started reading the comments, and I was reading some of them, and they were even getting to the point where even people who were excited for the film said, haven't we had enough trailers? Like, I'm excited, but haven't we seen enough? Why are you still releasing more trailers when this film comes out in like less than 2 weeks? Could it possibly be because, it's outpacing all of these other movies in the pre-sales? But could it possibly be that as a fact that doesn't guarantee anything, because that Solo, a Star Wars story, also outpaced a lot of other films that ended up losing money at the box office, didn't even break $400 million at the box office? I'm sure you remember that. And some people say, why are you comparing it to Solo? Why are you doing that? You can't compare the movie to Solo. Sure you can. And I'll get into that in a little bit. But then you also have the media continuing. This is the LA Times, the beautiful, the wonderful LA Times. Brie Larson says the great love in Captain Marvel is its female friendship. Now, I want to be very clear here. Brie Larson did not actually say female friendship. She points out that one of the key parts of the film, one of the centers of this film, is the relationship that occurs between her character and her best friend, Maria Rambeau. And so therefore says that this is indeed where the focus is. It's not something that we made a big deal about, but this is the love of the movie. This is the great love. This is the love lost. This is the love found again. This is the reason to continue fighting and to go to the ends of the earth. Her best friend and her best friend's daughter. Now see, almost everything in that sentence made sense except for the love lost, the love found again. I guess it has something to do with the memory loss, I guess, but that's not really how I would describe any friendship for that matter. But the LA Times decided to run with it and say it's the female friendship, because they know they're trying to get every single person just triggered. And then what do you know? Look at that, The Guardian. Why sexist attempts at sabotage will fail. Yes. Because let's just get down to it. Let's just get to brass tacks. The reason why only 51% of audiences, according to Rotten Tomatoes, actually want to go see this film is because it just doesn't look that good. Keep this in mind. What this means, I think people are just running away, because people are saying, oh, there's these fake reviews coming out before the movie's even released. These aren't reviews. Keep this in mind. These are people saying that they have no interest in seeing the movie. Notice how you see people who say, I want to see this. I've been waiting for Captain Marvel for a while. Can't wait to take my whole family next week. Okay, I buy it. I think that there definitely are some people that are going to do that. Or Craig M. here, not interested. Ugh, she delivers those lines like a D-list actress. Think I'll pass on this one. So notice how in almost every single one of these circumstances, these are comments about wanting to either see or pass on the film. These are not reviews. These are whether you want to see it or not. What this number means is that out of the 18.4 thousand people, out of the 18,000 people that have come to this site and said, am I interested? Do I want to see it? Or am I not interested? 51% say that they are interested, meaning 49% are not. Now, some people are out there very skeptical saying, well, Rotten Tomatoes isn't really that reliable. What does it really tell us about the way the audience feels, right? Right? Well, we can look to The Last Jedi for a good example. Oh, well, that was just a bunch of Russian trolls. Oh, really? Was it? Well, then why is it that you have Captain Marvel changing the name of its character because it doesn't want to connect to Star Wars? Why do you have the president of Disney coming out saying, oh, we goofed on Star Wars, guys. There's a problem in Star Wars. We did too much too fast. Now, obviously, that's an excuse. We know the real reason is because of this dumpster fire of a movie. You don't have this kind of a split unless there is something severely wrong. And all the people saying, oh, it's Russian bots. Oh, really? Here's an interesting fact. When you compare the number of user ratings given for this movie to the number of user ratings given for Solo, and then you also compare the box office for Solo to the box office of Last Jedi, meaning people who actually saw both films, you end up seeing around 20% for one and 30% for another. Meaning that these numbers are actually not that far off. Meaning that you're only seeing a 10% difference when, again, you're using the actual numbers. This is just using Rotten Tomatoes too. This is obviously not the peak of scientific knowledge. I'm not trying to say that this is some secret knowledge that only a few people have. I'm just a guy who saw the numbers and was like, hey, I wonder how the percentages work out. I wonder if you compare the box office to one and then the audience to one to the other, and is there a correlation? Because obviously, if you're looking at the smaller box office number having smaller number of reviews, well, what happens if you compare? Is this really going to be that much higher? Is there really going to be that many more people to the point where it doesn't make sense for how much money or how many people went to actually go see the movie? But a 10% difference. So again, 206,000, only 40,000 people voted for this one. When you compare that, there is only a 10% difference. What I mean by that is this, that the people who saw this movie and rated it, only of which 64% liked it, only has a difference when you break down the box office numbers, people who actually went to go, actual real numbers, people who actually broke down the movie, you only see a 10% difference between the two. Meaning that this number is extremely reliable, because if you take away 10% of these reviews, guarantee you, you're still going to be pretty damn close to that 50%, especially since they don't really count the half-star reviews. For some reason, obviously they'll count the 5-star reviews, but they won't count the half-star reviews. So you have a lot of things going on. What do I mean by all this? Oh my God, Odin, you're ranting again. What I mean is that Rotten Tomatoes, though it is not, and I would never claim it to be, the peak of scientific knowledge, the peak of scientific wisdom, it is reliable nonetheless. This is a very great place to go to find out kind of, to get the temperature of a film. I don't think anyone in their right mind would say that The Last Jedi is not a divisive film. If you are still saying that The Last Jedi is an amazing film that most people love, I think you're living in a fantasy realm. Look at the fact that Solo Star Wars Story lost $200 million at the box office. Oh, well, that's because no one wanted this. No one wanted the movie. It came out during May, of course. All of these things have been debunked. All of these things have proven and been shown that they do not have any impact on this film not making money, of this film making over $600 million less than any other Star Wars film within the Disney franchise. The lowest grossing one other than this was Rogue One at $1 billion. That film in China, Rogue One, made more money than The Last Jedi did in China. If this does not show you that there is indeed a problem, especially since China only has movies out for a certain period of time and it didn't even get the full extent for The Last Jedi, probably because people weren't going to see it, that should tell you that there is definitely a problem with The Last Jedi. And how is it that we were able to tell that there was this issue? Well, not only were we able to just listen to all the people around us saying, hey, yeah, I don't think it's a very good movie either. Not only were we able to read articles from Matthew Kadish saying, no, objectively speaking, this was a terribly written film. Not only were we able to see other videos breaking down the terrible fight choreography and so many other things from an objective standpoint that are bad, but also we were able to look at this number here. Now, does this mean that this is how the exact split goes? Does this mean that every person that went to go see this film, that it absolutely breaks down to 45-55? No, I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is that there is still a large portion, I would say a sizable portion. I would dare not even say, I would not say a majority, though many others would. I would say 40%. Hey, I'll give you even more. 35% of audiences who saw it didn't like it. However, of that 35%, you had a huge portion of that as hardcore Star Wars fans. And when those fans, when the hardcore fans who make up most of your profit when it comes to toy sales, etc., when they don't like the film, and when the vast majority of that 35% are indeed of that caliber, it makes sense then why the next Star Wars film that came out in the shadow of this piece of crap lost $200 million in the box office, had $600 million less than any other Disney Star Wars film. Okay, I'm sorry, you can't just ignore that fact. I don't think anyone's ever actually brought that fact up. $600 million is nothing to stop that. That's a lot of people saying, I don't want to see this movie. I do not want to support it. Now, of course, everyone will try and spin it saying, well, episode 9 is the real, that'll tell us for sure what's going on. Okay. If you want that to be the final ground, then guess what? You're going to have a bunch of those people who were part of that $600 million less that Solo did not make, that indeed will continue to stay home and not pay. But what it does show us is that these numbers are not completely unreliable. These numbers tell us the temperature of the box office. These numbers tell us the temperature of audience sentiment. And when you have people trying to spin it, trying to say that this is a sexist attempt, that these are all sexist, that the people leaving these reviews, which again aren't reviews, they're people saying, I have either an interest or I am not interested in seeing this movie. That's what it comes down to. These are not sexist trolls. These are not Russian bots. Studies were shown to show that these were not Russian bots, especially even if no studies were actually done. Just looking at the box office numbers and comparing them to the people that left reviews, there's only a 10% difference between these two. That's a lot of speculation for you to assume that, oh my gosh, these are mostly Russian bots. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any damn sense. Same to say that this is a bunch of, sexist misogynists. No. What this is people saying, hey, we got somebody, spinning nonsense. We have a media attacking a fan base, saying, oh my gosh, all of these people are white men and are racist and sexist and homophobic and the worst people ever. You know where else we saw this same exact narrative? That's right. The Last Jedi, which led into Solo Star Wars story. So am I saying that Captain Marvel is going to make less than $40 million at the box office? No, my range is still $450 to $650 million worldwide, which would be profitable. However, what I am saying is that by the end of this run, because especially when you look to The Guardian, I just honestly cannot wait to come back to these articles when this movie does not make as much as they say it's going to be, or to see them just start to spin their web saying, oh, well, it only failed or it only didn't do as well because of the sexist. Because pretty soon it's going to be not, oh, the sexist can't do anything. Now the narrative will be, oh, it's because of them. Either they're sizable because they're sexist, or they're small and they're trolls and they're sexist. You can't have both be true at the same time. But again, whatever way this film falls, whether this film is a massive surprise hit or whether this film is just a regular generic MCU film, which again, I think that it's probably going to be more of a generic MCU film, maybe even just a little bit less than a generic MCU film. It's going to be a hell of a good time watching all of these so-called objective journalists spin their webs. But anyway, guys, what y'all thoughts about this? Again, I think the whole Captain Marvel stuff is just freaking hilarious. Never before have I seen so much spin. Never before have I seen so many freaking trailers drop. But also, too, the fact that they're going after this number here, which continues to drop on a daily basis as far as the percentage goes. And they keep saying, oh, you can't trust Rotten Tomatoes. John Campea himself said, you can't trust those numbers, even though the number he was referring to for Alita matches up perfectly with his so-called trusted source of CinemaScore, which in and of itself is an imperfect score because it only takes like one certain audience demographic who actually have to sit down and fill out a card. So it kind of controls what people are going to think about the film. So CinemaScore is by far not the closest thing to accurate. However, what I've shown, hopefully, by the Last Jedi Star Wars comparison is that there is indeed some reliability here. That the people leaving these comments, leaving these reviews, or they're not even reviews at this point, leaving their thoughts saying, I don't want to see this movie, are real people. And these real people are going to sit at home for the box office. And if this opening number ends up coming over, or under rather, $100 million. Notice how it says for a U.S. bow of more. You do realize that bow usually means like overall. No one, I think, is denying that the Captain Marvel, by the end of its run domestically, is going to make $100 million. But I think is something that we can start to debate, is whether or not that $100 million will come in the first weekend. If this movie makes sub $100 million, if this movie makes 85, closer on par to a Doctor Strange, and it doesn't have the legs, and it doesn't perform as well in China, and it doesn't perform as well in other countries, it's going to be fun. Anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts about all this in the comments below. If you like this video, smash that like button, give it a thumbs up, give me a subscribe. You're all amazing, beautiful people. And also, guys, go see Alita Battle Angel. Again, especially if you're in the US of A, go support this film. Seriously. Like, I can't stress it enough. It's a great movie. It really is. It's a great movie with great character development. If you're planning on going to see this, just hopefully at this point you're like, I don't want to see this. Like, why do I need to see this? If you want to find out spoilers for like major plot points, go check out one of my last videos where I talk all about the spoilers. Because seriously, the spoilers confirm the fact that the movie and the star are more sexist than any person that's bad-mouthing this film, for damn sure. But anyway, thanks for watching, and God bless.